And we're on this exclusive, ladies and gentlemen. This is why you have to follow us on our YouTube channel, because you're not going to get content like this on our podcast. Back with me, my BFF, digital media reporter, star of ESPN, and Jill of all trades, my good friend Savanna Collins. Welcome back, my girl. How are you?
Oh, so good. In the thick of season, but it's been so exciting. Thanks for having me on and that amazing intro. I always love chatting with you. So I was like, yes, let's talk some softball.
We know your time is limited with your 100 different hats that you have to wear. So we will jump right into it. Some news that came out a couple of days ago that I'm sure excited for all fans of Athletes Unlimited. AU's partnership with the Sports Bra. For those of you who don't know, they're a very popular sports bar in Portland that shows women's sports. They show the FIFA Women's World Cup that's still going on. So, what can fans expect from this partnership with AU and the Sports Bra going to championship weekend next weekend?
Sure. It's super exciting, especially because they're going to come out to Rosemont and set up a pop-up. So they're going to have three featured cocktails that they serve at, their brick and mortar in Portland. There's going to be some giveaways. The owner, Jenny, she's going to be here. So if you're a fan or if you can never make it out to Portland, this is a perfect experience to get to have like a taste of the sports bra. I think it's neat just seeing AU's like reach grow. And I think this is a really good way to show that. So it's going to be exciting, especially if, you're a fan of the bar, but have never been able to make it out. Maybe Rosemont is a little bit closer. So you'll kind of get to have that experience this weekend.
And I'm so excited to see once again Athletes Unlimited kind of setting that standard in terms of embracing those trailblazers like the sports bra. And now you're getting them out there to not only give them exposure to let fans know that may not have heard of it before, but you're bringing them out in the biggest weekend of Athletes Unlimited. So it's a win-win for all parties involved.
Yeah, it's exciting. I have never been out. I mean, not only to Portland, but have really never been to that area of the US. So I'm like, oh, I see pictures of people who like go to the bar and like post us. I'm like, oh, I never get to go. So I'm excited too.
Get a small taste of what the fans in Portland had to experience
Right, right.
open up. Well, fans have gotten to speaking for fans experiencing the sports brawl, fans in Greenville, North Carolina got a chance to experience Athletes Unlimited last weekend when they partnered up with the Little League Softball World Series to bring AU, those athletes out there. What was that experience like from you being there, watching the players and the fans interact and seeing some softball from both New York, who won the Little League World Series championship, and getting to start week 3 of Athletes Unlimited in North Carolina?
Yeah, that was so cool. I think, maybe what people don't realize is Athletes Unlimited has never gone on the road. So we're always just, all 30 games straight through season in Rosemont. So this is the first time we have ever traveled as a league. So all athletes, all staff picked up and went to Greenville, which was really cool. And then this was the first time that the Little League Softball World Series has had pro games at the event ever. And speaking to the people at Little League, they talked a lot about how this is something that they do for the baseball World Series, have MLB players out those games. And they're like, why wouldn't we do the same thing for our youth softball players? So I thought it was huge for the league to get to be the first who played those games. The crowds were electric. It was so cool to be in front of just an absolutely packed crowd. We were playing at ECU. It was amazing. And I think what was neat too was just how well the AU athletes did with just being open and creating connections with the little leaguers, like Erica Piancastelli meeting and talking to Team Italy, Alicia Ocasio talking to Team Puerto Rico, Vic Hayward and Kelsey Harshman with Team Canada. I mean, and even the ones that maybe didn't have a specific tie through their national team, just like our athletes are so great about giving a little bit of themselves to all the people that they meet. And that weekend was just that to its core. And Little League is so special because it has that purity to it of youth sports and just playing for where you're from and with your friends and people that you know. And so I think it was a neat environment to step into being in the pro space of like, okay, we're going to go back to really where your whole career starts. It was amazing. I loved it.
And I know Kat Sandercock's parents were actually honored in Greenville, and they got to see her daughter pitch on that same day. So I'm sure for the Sandercock family, it was a tremendous thrill for them getting the recognition from Little League softball, and then seeing Kat, well, do what Kat does in the circle and closing down things.
Yeah, that was neat. I mean, you sometimes you just can't write it better than how it happens. So Kat being honored the day before for her, excellence in career in softball. She was a little leaguer and played in the Little League World Series, and then her parents being named the Parents of the Year, and then her coming out and closing that game was so cool. Like, I'm just like, man, like this is so full circle. And then Aaliyah Andrews too, with her walk off. She was a little leaguer. And so, man, it was just through every moment, it was a great experience.
I'm just hoping myself personally that this is something that we see more down the road, that partnership with Athletes Unlimited and the Little League, because you referenced it, Major League Baseball. They're gonna have the Little League Classic in Williamsport this weekend with
Right.
Philadelphia and the Washington Nationals. So I'm sure the softball fans say, hey, we want that too. And based on what you're saying, it feels like it's an inevitability that it's going to be happening down the road.
Yes, definitely. I think everybody walked away from that weekend of that week of we created something really special. So I think it's now looking to how do we make it bigger and grow it.
Well, we're gonna get back to the action in just a few moments, but you, my friend, are now being a part of the ESPN broadcast on Athletes Unlimited for Champ Season number 4. And trust, full disclosure, folks, I've known Savanna for a long time when she's just started in this business. So for myself personally, seeing her get to be on that microphone and getting to work with Eric Collins, I'm happy for you personally speaking, Savannah. So I know you're
Thank you.
certainly enjoying that moment. What's that been like for you, instead of not only doing your regular duties as the digital media correspondent with Athletes Unlimited, but now juggling that, being on air talent with ESPN, covering those games during those weekends?
I mean, gosh, thank you. First of all, it's been really, really fun. I definitely feel like I'm working a dream job that I never really even could have dreamt for myself. Getting to do linear TV and as a sideline reporter has always been my big goal. And I've taken a lot of different jobs and done a lot of different things to get there. But I think what's so special about this is it perfectly integrates with everything that I do with Athletes Unlimited already. So being the digital media reporter for the league and creating content and then getting to step in and be a part of that space too. Even though I hadn't done broadcasts with AU, I'd, done broadcast a lot throughout my career. And it's something that I kept trying to find a way to get back to. And so to do it this year has been really neat. And I think I really couldn't have imagined a better situation of getting to work with a league and then also getting to be a broadcaster consistently as well. So it has been awesome. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
And you got to see some very fun action on week 3. Of course, Team Alexander doing what they do best, and that's winning games. And obviously, Alexander doing it both with the arm and with the stick. By the way, go to AU Pro Sports on Twitter. You can see the social media recap by my guests over here. Phenomenal work as always. It seems like Odyssey Alexander has really come into her own after kind of being I don't want to say lost in the shuffle, so to speak, the last couple of seasons, but I feel this year, Savannah, she's really put it all together, and no surprise, she's on top of the league as we are down to the final 2 weeks of this championship season.
Yeah, it has been really neat to see her progression from her rookie year. And I think what was especially special was her run as a captain. Going into that experience, I talked to her and asked her, and she was really nervous and really stressed. But I think if you watched any of those games, you wouldn't have guessed it. And just, I think what she did so well and what has really been a key to success for captains who go 3-0 or even just 2-1 is being able to manage a pitching staff. I think people underestimate how difficult that can be. And she does that well, just knowing when to put herself in, when to take herself out. All 3 of those games, she had Cat close. Sometimes she split games with Alyssa Denham. So she just really had it going on and being in tune with her pitchers, never putting them in super tough situations. And you're right, she kind of has been a middle of the pack pitcher, whether that's, in stats or on the leaderboard. This is the first time we've really ever seen her be this high. I mean, she's number one going into this week. So she is one that has progressed. Just talking to her, there are pitches that she's, fine-tuned and worked on. But I think from the outside looking in, the confidence piece is really what stands out to me, is her being confident in herself as a pitcher and as a captain now too. And you see the result of that this season. It's been really special.
And she's really been starting to take over in the second half of the season, especially with her being over almost 200 points ahead of Bubba Nichols, who herself had a great week last week, won a couple of MVP honors, had a great performance on Sunday to get her into that captainship. Kind of like Odyssey, came in late the middle of the year last year, got her footing. Now she's really showing the Bubba Nichols that we all got to see her perform at UCLA. Now she has a chance to kind of be another AU champion like her former teammate Rachel Garcia was at AUX earlier this summer.
Yeah, that's one thing that I really enjoy about AU is at any time it could be somebody's week or be somebody's season. You'll see people step in and be a captain and then maybe they won't be back in that role again. And that hasn't always been the case. Throughout the years at AU, there's been a couple of players that have been so dominant that I think sometimes it can be a little repetitive of those same people being captains. That is what has made me enjoy this season so much, is every week we do not know who is going to be the captain, who will stay. It has changed every week. We've had 2 new captains, I think, every single week this season, and 2 that might stay. So it's really interesting when you look at the leaderboard, because usually going into week 4 in the past, we knew with Kat, we knew with Alicia. At this point, we were really starting to predict that it was going to be Deja. I have no idea who will win this season. I have no clue. It has never been this tight in week 4, which is super exciting. I like that element of it's anybody's game.
And one name that literally came out of nowhere last week was Danielle Gibson. She went from 35th entering week 3, ending the week 5th. And she herself has a chance to be a captain next week if she has another good week. And she finds herself right on the out. We saw this Alyssa Denham last year come on the outside last few weeks of the season. And if not for Deja hitting that home run in the final game that Sunday night, Alyssa Denham's the one that's winning the championship and not Deja. So maybe we're seeing that. Maybe we can see that from Danielle Gibson this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it is, for the hitters at least, is getting hot at the right time and then being on winning teams. And so those are the 2 pieces that you really have to be able to push for that championship. And then the one that I don't think people talk about enough is the MVP points. If you kind of look at who wins, they are usually the leader in MVP points on this season. And that's just because it gives you such a big chunk of points that you would not have otherwise. Danielle Gibson is a really good example. She got MVP honors twice last week. That's an extra 100 points that nobody else got. And nobody else, really had the opportunity to get, because they're only given to 3 people every game. So that's what I'm going to be looking at in week 4, is in this kind of top 10, who is consistently getting MVP points. Then maybe by week 5, I'll have an idea. But right now I do not know.
Well, then that's the beauty of it, is that we never know until, again, if last year's any indication, we won't know until likely the final inning of the final game to determine a champion, because that's how we found things out last year, talking with Savanna Collins exclusively here on In the Circle. It felt like, for me, and you touched on it earlier, this 4th championship season has been the most exciting and the most wide open of any season of Athletes Unlimited, because going to Greenville, first time they've ever traveled away from Rosemont, the different elements of new players stepping up. And you don't have those veterans with Danielle O'Toole, with Amanda Chidester there. Is it more exciting for you now that you've had a chance to kind of breathe real briefly with your very busy schedule to kind of reflect and say, this is a refreshing change for what I've been seeing the first 3 seasons.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. I have enjoyed these games really maybe more than any other. And it's funny, there's a couple different pieces for me that make me really like it. Is I like that there are quite a few very dominant pitchers. I think when you have a league with great pitching, you're going to have really exciting games. For a rookie, Megan Framo, to come in and throw a no-hitter in her first season is insane. And then you see Odyssey, who steps up and is being this, force in the circle this season. Rachel Garcia is always consistently good, coming off of winning AUX. I think another one is like Mariah Masson. Like, she had a great week last week.
She did.
She's 4-0 in her record. And I could go on. There's so many that are pitching so well. And I think that is what makes for really competitive games when you're having pitchers duels. Now, I know some people like to see a home run derby. That's not my preference. I want to see a couple home runs in the big moments, or maybe a team manufacturing runs. And that has made this season really neat. And the games are fast. I think that sometimes if you watched AUX, those games were long. But these games are sitting closer to 2 hours, 2.5 hours than any other. So when you're just kind of rolling through these games, I think it really makes for just an exciting atmosphere. It's good TV. And I think that has a big part to do with why this season has been so exciting as well. Is just, when was the last time you could turn on ESPN on a weekend and watch pro softball? I know my first job was with the Pride in 2018. And even then we weren't consistently throughout our regular season on ESPN2 and U. I mean, that's crazy to know that people could stumble upon this league at any given time, and you could spend your weekends watching softball on linear TV. So I never want to I always want to emphasize how important that is to making these games great, is that people can watch them, and it's really great TV and it's so entertaining.
And I think with that, where you're being on linear TV, it gets eyes on the sport that may not generally follow softball, even in a collegiate sense. You're getting to say, oh, I can still follow my favorite player here in Athletes Unlimited. And it's in a unique format that once you watch it a couple of times, you can kind of understand it. It keeps the fans engaged in the game, even if the score doesn't say that the game is of consequence, so to speak.
Sure, yeah, and I get it. I think some people, especially in softball, see AU and they're just like, yeah, I don't know if I can get behind this, because college is so rooted in a team that you are a diehard fan of. But what I will say, especially if you don't come out to AU in person and you just watch on TV, the games are so entertaining.
Right.
The softball is great. Like, nobody is denying that the softball is great, but you can listen to catchers mic'd as they call a game. And you can listen to an outfielder as they are fielding a ball talk back to the broadcasters. We have people in the middle of the game go and sit in the chair and talk. If you ever wondered how somebody feels after a home run, we interview them when they get back to the dugout. And so I think that is the piece where I really encourage fans to just watch it, because maybe you're going to hear some things you've never heard from pro athletes while they're playing a game. And I think the longer you watch, the more bought in you'll be, because it is so competitive inning after inning. And there is no off day for these players. They know that every single game means so much to their team winning and them moving up the leaderboard as a collective. So I usually challenge people and say, like, you may think that this is individual, but there has never been a setting of softball where as a team it's more important, because if you lose as a team, you all move down. So the teams that come together and have great camaraderie are usually the ones who win. So yeah, I really encourage people to watch, just for the culmination of how it comes together to be really entertaining.
Speaking with Savanna Collins here on the In the Circle YouTube channel. I know we talked about a little bit earlier, Savanna, about you working now with ESPN, being part of their broadcasting team on top of those obligations you already have with Athletes Unlimited. How vital has been their digital media teammates to help you out when you've had to juggle in those weekends your duties with ESPN, being the on-field reporter, as well as doing those recaps, those game and those weekly recaps on the website?
Oh gosh. I mean, I really work with an incredible team, and there's a lot of us. And there's kind of a core of us who are really committed to softball, and who have loved it our whole lives. Kind of our videographer who leads for softball, her name's Hope Ballard, and she played in college. The voice behind softball on Instagram and Twitter is Adeline Nicholson. She played softball in college. Our photographer, Jade Hewitt, played softball in college. I feel like the oddball out that I didn't. Um, but I have worked in it and have played it for most of my life and just love it. And so they just really get it. Like, they get what is going on within the game and what it means to these players, because they followed their careers too. And, I don't know if I could do this job without them, because of how, bought in they are to AU success, but like also mine too. Like, they are my biggest cheerleaders, maybe aside from my mom. Of just, yeah, they so encourage me and just push me to be better and make my projects better. And so I really wouldn't trade this kind of core group of us who commit to being here the whole season and work together as a team. And there's a much larger content team than that, because AU is so big and we cover 4 sports. But, those are kind of my softball gals, and I couldn't do it without them.
The first time you got to be on the on-field for ESPN, what was that like for you? Because I know you've worked a lot of different positions. Trust me, folks, I can attest to this personally. For you yourself, what was that moment like where you got when they turn it over to you and say, go down to the field with Savanna Collins? What was the emotions running like for yourself as you're like, hey, I'm on ESPN, like now?
Yeah, it was neat. I mean, I think that first day, I don't really get nervous very often anymore. It kind of is what it is. But I will say I did have a moment where I think it hit me a little bit later this season. It was last week, because those first couple games I'm like, oh, I'm doing my thing. Like, I'm so excited to be a part of this broadcast team and be doing my thing. But it really hit me last week, where my parents were in a restaurant getting dinner, and like I was on, the TVs in the restaurant, and then just some people in the restaurant who knew my parents going, "Is that your daughter?" And then even just people back home texting and being like, "Hey, like I saw you on TV today." And I don't really think it hit me until that, because in my mind, I'm just doing my job, and enjoying it, and so in the moment for these games, and kind of chasing that good story or good nugget to tell fans. But maybe about last week, seeing that, is when I was like, okay, this is kind of what I always envisioned for myself. Because I've wanted to be a sideline reporter since I was about 14. Like, who knows that they want to do that at that age, but I did. And so now I'm like, okay, this is really happening. So it kind of hit me last week, to be honest.
I mean, and I think for everybody who knows you, you always talk about your parents talk about this, always seen you doing that. So I'm sure for them, they were like, whoa, this is really happening. So, and I'm
Yeah.
sure I know it's hard for a broadcaster like to kind of stay like that tunnel vision, kind of stay focused. So I'm sure for you, you're like, okay, I got a job to do, a job to do, but the inside, like, ah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny too, because I've really wanted to step into this role with AU kind of coming into this season, and just knowing that getting the amount of time and the way that especially the softball players like embrace me and open up to me is what allows me to do my job, what I would say is well, in order to tell good stories. And I thank them for that, because they're so open with me. And that's why I was really excited about this job, because I was like, this is a group of people that I've invested 3 years into building trust with, some longer, the ones that I covered when I worked for USSSA,
Mhm.
and just being like, okay, if I'm going to get to be able to be their sideline reporter, I want to be the best that I can possibly be for them. Because they do like mean so much to me to be able to tell their stories and be a part of their pro careers. So it's been nothing short of a dream.
Now I know we got week 4 coming up. got those games coming up. But then next weekend, championship weekend, we talked about the sports bra being out there. Now, for all you people who like the 80s, they're having an 80s promotion. It's an 80s night giveaway. Are you having any potential ideas for dressing up like the 80s next weekend? Or is that too early to say?
I've thought about it. I have thought about it. I will say my wardrobe tends to lean 70s, but I do have some things I could whip out. So I've been thinking about it.
Well, all I will say, ladies and gentlemen, is that Savanna, I've already sent you a photo of what I could potentially be in. So if I won't say any further, folks, you just have to wait until next week to see if I decide to pull it off.
I
So,
love it.
so I'm gonna say Savannah's already seen it, and she's like, "Would you really pull it off?" I'm like, "I might."
Green light for me. Green light
Okay,
for me. I love
okay,
leaning into a theme. Let's lean in.
yes. Now, speaking of leaning in, what's going to be the couple storylines that you're going to want to lean into as
Mm.
we go into week 4 and get to that championship weekend where people are setting themselves in position to win those medals, to be the champion of the AU, and also other accolades as well. What are the two storylines that you're going to be leaning into this week?
Ooh, that's a good question. This is about the point in season I'm starting to ask myself that too. It's funny because, week 1 through 3, you're just kind of following the action.
Right.
But by week 4 is when I'm looking for the story. There's a couple that stand out to me. You just don't know. But the ones that really kind of have stood out to me so far that I would really encourage people to dig into, to tune in and I guess really get plugged in with why they're special. Sierra Romero stands out to me. She has had such a lengthy pro career coming back from injury. Last season with AU was really her kind of comeback season. But seeing her play the way she has been playing this season, I have had people say, like, this looks like Michigan Sierra. So that is one where I'm like, man, you making a run for this would be really, really neat. She's played so well and she's been a captain multiple weeks. So that's one that I've got my eye on because I think however this season ends for Sierra really means a lot to her career and her coming back from injury and just being her best self. She's had some, great conversations with me about getting to this point that I'm like, man, like that, those are things I could take a note from in my own life too. That's one that stands out to me. The rookies, gosh, like Megan Faramo taking on this huge responsibility as a captain and an ace in this league is huge. And I guess the question I'm kind of asking myself is like, how does she do it? And how is she able to do it so young? What is it about her? Kat Sandercock as a closer is a story I'm working on right now that's so unique. And I really get fascinated by these things in how it kind of ties into baseball, how that's so normal in baseball to be, either an ace, a mid-relief, a closer. And you don't see that in softball super often. And that she just like has this ice in her veins mode that she can go into. So that's a story I'm working on right now. And then just really, what does it take to be a champion right now? I think that's the biggest thing that I've kind of been asking myself because, year one, you're only working with one champion. Information about that one champion, it was Kat, and she is, in a category all of her own in many ways, and then to see Alicia do it. And then Deja's the first position player. So now I'm kind of sitting back and I'm going, okay, I have these 3, championship champions to look at. I have 2 AUX champions to look at. And so now I'm kind of starting to ask myself, like, is there a formula to winning AU? And I'm hoping to maybe start to understand that going into week 5 and once we have our champion. So those are some personal storylines that I'm watching, and then also some big picture league storylines that I'm looking at is, what's it take to be able to do it week after week? Is it somebody who shoots up from the bottom, like, an Alyssa Denham who kind of came out of left field, or is it somebody who does it consistently week after week? And that's what we've seen so far with Kat, Alicia, Deja, even Thule at the end of AUX, Rachel too. They consistently won. There hasn't really been somebody who came out of nowhere before. So that's what I'm excited to find out this week.
And we will find out all together starting on Friday. And with got two, by the way, 2 first-time captains They'll be battling in a second game they'll be battling on the first game on Friday with Alyssa Ortiz and Bubba Nichols, pair of first-time captains, battling before Alexander and Team Davison to battle. Savanna, always great to catch up with you, my dear. I will see you in Rosebud next week. 80s costume, I don't know. We will have to find out. But always a pleasure to catch up, my dear.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy talking to you. I love any opportunity to just talk softball and really get into like what has made this season and every season so unique. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for watching this latest video. To unlock more content, click on the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. Follow us on social media by clicking at In The Circle SB down at the bottom, or download In The Circle wherever you listen to your podcast in the description field.